caught in a cycle. My partner's sweetness turned sour, leaving me questioning if I am in a toxic relationship. Can love really persist through ups and downs, or is it just a dangerous illusion I've been blinded by? Trigger warning. Mentions of self-harm. I'm 19 years old, female, have been in a relationship with my partner, 20 years old, female, for 3 years now, and we have fit together very well since the beginning. We enjoy the same things, share similar energy, and possess the same overall uniqueness. However, recently I have started to question whether it is truly the perfect relationship my mind has led me to believe. The first instance I can remember is the reason we began dating in the first place. My partner, I will refer to them as K, was the first to confess their love. At that time, I was not quite ready for a relationship, so we decided to hold off but remained very close friends. A few months later, one day K suddenly began to act strangely, and their texts became terse and harsh. Instead of responding with their usual "Hey, how are you?" or "Okay," it changed to "Hello" and "All right." I cannot tell if that seems trivial or if I was overreacting, but it was quite unsettling at the time. I inquired about what was wrong, and Kay explained that they thought it was better to distance themselves because if we were not dating, they did not want to be close to me or make things awkward or bother me. I do not recall the exact wording because after this incident, they deleted all the messages, so I really have no memory of it aside from one picture from the day we started dating. I began to worry because I did not want to lose what was my best friend at that time, so I expressed my feelings and insisted that I truly did not want them to push me away and that they were not bothering me or creating any awkwardness between us. However, they persisted and continued to text in that monotonous tone. Eventually, I determined that I would rather be in a relationship with them than lose my best friend, and for a long while, my mind convinced me that it was a realization of how much I loved them and how I finally understood that I did not want to be without them. But now, I have been questioning that. I confessed my own feelings and sent one large text expressing that I really did not want to be without them and could not imagine not being friends, and I mentioned that I was ready to try dating. As soon as I sent that message, they began responding in an upbeat and cheerful tone, their first reply being something like, "It's okay, I understand," compared to the "all right" I had received just a few minutes earlier. It was extremely stressful, and I think that marked the beginning of my codependency issues. That is just the initial example among many, and after that first incident, a part of my mind instructed me to keep track of times when Kay has texted me in a rough or unkind manner, because they had a tendency to delete messages as they sent them. I am thankful my brain listened, because it has assisted me in compiling all of it together, leading me to write this. There have been numerous instances I have noted of them telling me to leave, becoming upset with me for attempting to assist them with homework, getting angry for my sensitivity, spiraling and expressing how they are a terrible person while ignoring my attempts to counter that, and even becoming upset when I do respond. All of this, in turn, just makes me want to help them more, and every time I think matters are improving, it goes downhill again, leaving me feeling as if I must tread carefully when talking to them so that they do not become upset with me and raise their voice. Out of the instances I have recorded, and there are countless in-person conversations that conclude with them cursing me out or calling me inappropriate names, only 2 out of approximately 15 are related to my being sad or upset. Both of these end with Kay telling me how overly sensitive I am and how I tend to apologize too much, leading them to become annoyed, while the remainder are Kay expressing anger, shouting at me, and subsequently apologizing repeatedly, even when I assure them it is all right. Despite this, I never tell them they apologize excessively. I have suggested they consider therapy, but of course, I cannot force them to go, and therapy cannot truly benefit someone who does not wish to be helped. They have attempted it but find it unappealing and ineffective, so they often become angry when I propose it, even though I remind them that participation is not mandatory. I have also considered discussing my concerns with their mother, whom I adore and trust immensely, but I hesitate to do so, fearing that it may create trouble for them and worrying that if they did something to themselves because of it, I would feel responsible. There was one occasion when I was having an awful day, partly due to Kay, and it escalated to the point where I was on the verge of having a panic attack right before a class. I ended up remaining in the bathroom after everyone else had left and just sat in a stall. I was in there for so long that the automatic lights turned off, and I began hallucinating, sitting there contemplating whether to call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. Eventually, the class concluded. Some people were concerned about me, but I heard Kay walk by and dismissively mention it audibly, allowing me to hear that it was probably just me being foolish or something, when they already knew something was happening, as they often become upset when I am sad or have panic attacks, and may even make comments like, "I guess you are going to go self-harm now, huh?" Everyone left, and I remained in there until the coach had to come in to retrieve me and send me to my next class. Later, Kay became upset with me, blaming me for making them worry about my potentially harming myself in the bathroom, despite the fact that they were the one who instructed everyone not to be concerned. They have a way of pulling me back in, though, switching so easily from being sweet and caring, using a gentle voice and holding me, to suddenly flinching away from my touch and speaking to me in a disappointed and upset tone, effectively depriving me of affection because they know I will not reach for them if they do not desire it, even though I struggle to express when I do not want it, because when I do, they tend to go too far and end up refusing to touch me at all, using the excuse that I did not genuinely want it. This approach always draws me back in and makes me believe that when they finally calm down, become kind again, and tell me how much they love me and how sorry they are, I instantly accept it because I fear that if I do not, they will fall back into that negative spiral. Recently, they have become a bit more physical, and while normally we could engage in physical interactions playfully, such as them pulling my hair or giving a light slap, it has become noticeably rougher and harsher recently, along with them feeling more comfortable being rude to me around our friends. They have previously admitted to me, and we both recognize, that the reason they act so differently with me compared to our other friends is that they know that no matter how they behave, I will not leave, which is true. I understand that it is terrible, and there are times when I really should leave, but it is incredibly difficult, especially when I am left waiting with the hope that in a few hours or days, everything will be fine again. They have put me through so much at this point, but I keep convincing myself that it is not toxic or harmful because they always apologize and feel remorse later. However, after some recent events, both my best friend, who is not Kay, and I agree that it is not necessarily the healthiest relationship. I just need some outside opinions to help me determine if I am overreacting and if this situation is normal, or if it genuinely is not a great relationship. Even if it is unhealthy, it remains so challenging to even consider leaving this person with whom I have built a connection and shared so much, especially when I fear they might harm themselves if I were to depart. If any clarification or elaboration is needed, please ask. Summary: my partner may have toxic tendencies and the situation has worsened, yet leaving remains incredibly difficult. Story 2. After a decade-long marriage, I embraced solitude and self-improvement. But as I ventured into a new relationship, family drama and personal challenges resurfaced, leaving me questioning if I should pull away to protect myself or continue to fight for connection. Is it time for solitude or commitment? I am about 2 years removed from a 10-year relationship and marriage, and during the first year afterward, I dedicated my time to being alone and working on myself. My marriage ended because we were both exhausted and emotionally distant. By the end, we had become completely different individuals. We mutually agreed to end everything, and only after this did I discover that my wife had been unfaithful for 6 months prior to our separation. I believe part of her decision to keep this hidden until everything was settled stemmed from her desire to ensure a smooth transition for herself legally and financially. I do not feel particularly upset about her infidelity. About a year earlier, she became pregnant, and neither of us wanted to have a child, so she underwent an abortion. I was too numb and overwhelmed to effectively console and support her through that experience. I struggled with whether I truly wanted a child, a decision that has left me indecisive my entire life. Despite all of this, I moved forward with my life following the separation. I made significant progress. I worked with a therapist, focused on establishing boundaries with others, and attempted to become more vulnerable. I cultivated friendships and enhanced my life through social connections and hobbies. My confidence grew, and I felt ready to date again. I met someone last May, about a year after my separation. She possesses many qualities I sought in a partner. She is humorous, intelligent, attractive, and has a strong character while actively pursuing her career. I appreciated that she shares many interests and tastes with me. I wanted compatibility, and it appeared that I had found it. We spent time together a few times a week during the summer since she lived in a different city. I would visit her after she finished work one day a week, allowing us to enjoy the evening. I always met her at her workplace, and we would explore the city together. Afterward, I would return her to her car and head home. On weekends, she would drive in after work on Friday and stay until Sunday night. I was very content with this arrangement. I fell in love with her throughout the summer and began envisioning our future. I imagined us moving in together. I even considered the possibility of purchasing a home together and further intertwining our lives. This seemed clear and exciting to me. However, significant events began transpiring around me starting last fall and continuing through now. 1. Troubles had been brewing in my parents' marriage for nearly a year. I anticipated their divorce would eventually occur, and given the circumstances, I wanted to support my mother because I have always been very close to her. Unfortunately, I ended up becoming her therapist, and things deteriorated significantly between her and my father. I found myself caught in the middle. My mother moved in with me for a time, causing immense stress. I worried about their divorce affecting my home life, and it did. There is a troubling history between my parents from my childhood, and I feared it might resurface. They are still navigating the divorce process, and I have found it has impacted me more than I initially expected as an adult. My mother has since moved out, but has yet to establish a long-term living arrangement, as she is waiting for the divorce to conclude in order to receive her share of the assets to start anew. 2. My partner has experienced a series of significant life changes within approximately 6 months, all occurring amidst my family drama. She underwent surgery late last summer, and I spent about a month with her in a hotel, helping her recover because I was concerned she might try to handle everything herself. She subsequently found a new job in my city, which led to our decision to move in together after knowing each other for only 6 months, a decision that was mine. She also commenced a master's program upon moving, but recently paused her studies due to feeling overwhelmed by the demands of both the new job and school. Now that we have moved in together, I am struggling with various issues. Some pertain to me, while others concern her. I feel defensive living so closely to someone romantically while needing to open up and build trust. I also miss my personal space, as she is nearly always at home. Most of her free time is spent at our house, or if she is out, she is with me. Furthermore, I am noticing potential incompatibilities, such as my organized nature compared to her lack of it, as well as her challenges with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and her difficulties managing responsibilities and staying motivated. While she is driven in her career, she seems indifferent to saving or preparing for the future. I have always had a defined plan to buy a house, whereas she claims to feel detached from my plans despite not having any of her own. I recognize that there was much I failed to see or evaluate before we rushed into intimacy, largely because I did not heed the inner voice advising me to take things slower. 3. My brother and I have had a tumultuous relationship. He consistently places me and my family in situations where we end up bailing him out, only for him to find himself in similar predicaments again. During my separation, he asked me for rent money, threatening eviction. I established a boundary at that time and did not provide him with any aid. Recently, however, he not only was evicted but was just 2 days away from homelessness when he decided to inform us. This revelation shocked me, and I compromised my own boundary by breaking my rule and giving him money to help him escape his dire situation. After all of this, I find myself in a complicated emotional state. I feel as though I am numbing myself again, or that something is broken within me. I struggle to offer much of myself to anyone right now. Almost all of the excitement and plans I had for my partner have been replaced by a desire to forge my own path. I fear that I will never be able to open up to my partner in the way I had intended and in the way she desires. I feel that once my mother is settled, I want to create distance between myself and my family. I am fairly certain I wish to cut my brother out of my life entirely moving forward. Relationships have always been challenging for me. I seek approval and face issues with self-esteem. Moreover, I have a history of individuals who seem to draw close only to take advantage of me. Is that all relationships consist of? Dependency. Are we obligated to spend our lives attaching ourselves to others and bearing their burdens? Are people invariably this complicated? I feel a strong inclination to continue my life alone, concentrating solely on my own needs and well-being. Yet, there is a part of me that worries this is unhealthy. I fear I might be taking the easy way out by avoiding connection, and that I could be an avoidant individual who never seeks to address my avoidant tendencies. It was so effortless during the time between my marriage ending and all this turmoil. I lived alone, did as I pleased, and focused on myself. I did not take on anyone else's problems, and it was simply so easy. I have a great job and significant savings, along with a healthy retirement plan for the future. I can go wherever I want and do anything I desire. Perhaps I am feeling overwhelmed, and that is what is driving my current thoughts, but I feel as though I do not need to be closely connected to anyone again. It is just too much for me. I have everything I require in life. All my basic needs are met, and I will always have the resources to ensure that. I remain uncertain whether this is truly who I am and how I feel, or if my emotions are clouded and jaded given the turmoil of my life recently. Should I persevere in this state, hoping the clouds will part and I will emerge from under this weight with the assistance of therapy, or should I cut ties to protect myself? Story 3. How can we broke 26F picking up the pieces and wealthy 38M with his shit together? Better communicate and set shared responsibilities. Summary. We are in significantly different stages of our lives. She is young, rebuilding her life in a new town after a domestic violence incident, and lacks career prospects. He is financially secure and has a very busy life with little free time. We seek advice on how to have conversations about equitably sharing domestic responsibilities. We are Swati, 26 years old, female, and Dominique, 38 years old, male, and we have been dating for approximately 6 months after being platonic friends for a few years following a brief pandemic relationship. We live together and enjoy a stable, playful, emotionally fulfilling, and mutually supportive relationship, despite some significant differences between us. We share a passion for art, meaningful experiences, whimsy, and supporting those around us. Swati was sharing an apartment with her ex-partner in another state last year when she and Dominique reconnected romantically. We met on trips to each other's hometowns, but during one visit, Swati's roommate ex-partner attacked her, prompting Dominique to stay in her town for a few weeks to ensure her safety. After losing her stable housing, Swati moved to Dominique's town, which is also her hometown where she has some friends and family. At that time, Dominique was traveling 90% of the time and invited Swati to live in his home in hopes of spending time together when he was in town and providing her with a safe, comfortable environment to help her regain stability. The weeks and months following Swati's domestic violence incident were extremely challenging for her. However, ultimately, Swati and Dominique managed to move her belongings into his home about 6 months ago. Swati was also able to resolve the legal situation by relinquishing her shared lease to her ex-partner as per the directive of a family court judge. Losing her job, apartment, community, and nearly all of her savings was deeply traumatic for her. After this period, she focused on finding a job in her field near her new home, a process that proved to be difficult. Although she made some money as a rideshare driver and by selling clothes online, she recently started a retail position after being unsuccessful in securing a job in her field. In recent months, Dominique has reduced his work travel and is enjoying spending more time at home with Swati. Now that we are together more often, we regret to admit that we are experiencing petty conflicts over the division of domestic responsibilities. We will share some basic information regarding our discretionary income, free time, and personalities. We hope to discover fresh perspectives and attitudes to approach this conversation. Here are the basic details. Dominique has a demanding and fulfilling job that earns him $150,000 per year. He typically works between 30 to 60 hours per week, primarily during business hours, but often has to complete work in the evenings and on weekends. His role experiences seasonal fluctuations, and he is currently in the middle of a busy year. Swati works a part-time retail job, earning about $1,500 per month before taxes. While she appreciates the improved work-life balance compared to a position in her field, it can still be exhausting since it is retail work. Due to the financial depletion caused by the domestic violence incident, Dominique has been supportive in financing major expenses and expects to cover the majority of their expenses throughout their hopefully long relationship. Major expenses during their time together have included $3,500 per month for mortgage, utilities, etc. This is somewhat unusual to mention, as Swati moving in does not significantly increase Dominique's typical monthly expenses. He is hesitant to charge her rent, particularly because he earns significantly more than she does. However, he is currently experiencing some financial anxiety due to the need to spend a substantial amount to replace his roof and air conditioning in the upcoming months. While this expense is not her responsibility, it adds to his financial stress. A couple of trips costing around $1,000 to $2,000 each, $2,000 for lodging, food, and incidentals during the domestic violence incident and its aftermath, $500 to $800 per month on groceries. Swati is exploring options for a college education, which Dominique is eager to fully support, either financially or by assisting with practical responsibilities like chores and meals when her studies demand more of her time. In addition to his day job, Dominique is currently constrained by a real estate investment that will consume a considerable portion of his disposable income and time for the next 6 to 12 months. This will be a source of stress for him for a while. The investment will cost approximately $80,000 and require about 20 to 40 hours per month, but once it is completed, he anticipates regaining much of his free time and investment income. While he also has the option to sell the property to relieve the burden, he would be forfeiting a lot of potential gains. He acknowledges that he is choosing to bear this burden for the promise of future personal benefit, but is anxious about making his financial and personal stress a problem for her. Swati is triggered when she feels like a burden or inadequate. Conversely, Dominique feels triggered in situations where he senses he is being taken advantage of. Both logically understand that she is not a burden, and he is not being taken advantage of, and they are working hard to prevent their reactions to these triggers from affecting their relationship. Dominique tends to be more type A and particular about his living space. He exhibits a lack of relaxation and will thoroughly tidy his home to ensure his next day is as comfortable as possible. Swati leans more towards being type B but appreciates a clean home. She is content to leave some dishes or miscellaneous items out until the next day without stressing about it. Dominique seeks more support from Swati and is beginning to feel resentment towards her, as well as some avoidance. In contrast, Swati desires more presence and attention from Dominique and feels frustrated, as if she is competing for his time against his career, investments, hobbies, and friendships. Dominique maintains strong relationships with his family and friends, while Swati is in the process of rebuilding hers. Swati is responsible for laundry, sweeping, mopping, and cleaning the bathrooms. The two of them share dishwashing duties. Dominique prepares bulk meals for both of them, while Swati occasionally cooks special meals. Dominique is in charge of home repairs. So, where do we go from here? We are experiencing conflicts that are beginning to surface the resentment Dominique feels due to a lack of support. He is starting to articulate these feelings. He does not want to be seen as a demanding partner, while she certainly wants to contribute her fair share. Some recent examples of conflicts include Dominique becoming reactive when Swati leaves her dishes out. Swati becoming reactive because he restricts her from displaying her artwork in shared spaces. He was even hesitant to allow her to hang specific pieces in his guest room, which they have turned into her office. He wanted her to contribute more to their shared responsibilities before feeling comfortable granting her space in his home. We believe these conflicts are trivial relative to where our relationship currently stands. While we typically recover well from these disagreements, we want to address the issues once and for all, as we have more important matters to focus on. He has many responsibilities and wants to enjoy the rich life he is building, while she is starting anew from scratch and looking forward to significant opportunities. We would greatly appreciate insights from others who have navigated the division of shared expenses when both individuals are coming from vastly different life situations. Story 4. Mom doesn't want me to lose my job, but supports the firings that would inevitably make me lose my job. I was uncertain about which subreddit to post in, but I believe this would be an appropriate one. I am not intending to initiate a political debate. Rather, I need to express my feelings and hopefully seek support or advice. I apologize if this seems lengthy. I tend to include numerous details when making posts, but I am making an effort to keep it concise. To provide some background, I have been a federal employee for 2 years. I conduct scientific research, primarily focused on ecological and climate issues, and I have finally achieved my dream job. I have aspired to be a civil servant since 2014, and I have completed internships and contractual positions that have brought me to my current role, including a NASA internship at a National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration facility. Thanks to my experience, I reached an incredibly challenging grade level that is difficult to attain with just a master's degree. While discussing my accomplishments with my uncle, who is a former Air Force member currently working in human resources, he expressed amazement at what I have achieved and how I attained my grade level. My father, however, did not bother to show interest or pride in my success because he was too preoccupied with a football game. That being said, my parents have not been particularly vocal or attentive regarding my achievements. When I informed my mother about the NASA internship, she initially told me that I could not participate because it would require me to drive an hour to and from the location, and she was more concerned about the mileage that would accumulate on my car. There are many other instances of negative interactions between my parents and me that are far worse, but I feel that this specific detail is somewhat relevant. Additionally, I must mention that I have complex post-traumatic stress disorder due to childhood trauma, and my mother is one of my primary abusers. Now, regarding my current situation, many of you may be aware that in the United States, numerous federal employees have been unlawfully terminated, and agency heads are now being instructed to plan for workforce reductions, commonly referred to as a reduction in force, RIF. Prior to these developments, I had been diligently working on improving my mental health. I felt as though I was on the brink of a significant breakthrough. However, the present circumstances have complicated things once more. Each morning, I wake up wondering if today is the day I will face unlawful termination. I understand that people might suggest I should leave if this is adversely affecting my mental health, but I have invested so much effort to reach my current position. I genuinely love my job, and I cannot bring myself to update my resume or seek other employment. I am determined to remain with my current employer because I do not wish to abandon this role. Although I am attempting to use the current crisis as motivation to continue progressing and to demonstrate my essential role, it remains extraordinarily challenging. It is also unhelpful that I am not actively reaching out to my support network because new developments occur constantly, and I feel as though I would be overwhelming them with information they may not want to engage with. Russ Vaught, the director of the Office of Personnel Management, mentioned in an interview that they want us, federal employees, to suffer. Therefore, I also hesitate to add to their enjoyment of my public suffering, especially given that Elon Musk has publicly expressed his pleasure regarding this. I have shared some initial thoughts in my family group chat, but the only person who has truly shown genuine support is my sister. My mother has responded with some words of somewhat encouraging sentiment, so I assumed she at least sympathized with my situation. It is additionally frustrating that I recently attended a work trip for a meeting on collaborative restoration efforts for an endangered habitat, but in the midst of it, I was urgently instructed to return to my duty station due to the executive order. This has only exacerbated the overall stress I am experiencing because I am being restricted in what I can do for my job. Recently, I met with my parents because I required their assistance with a matter that involved some paperwork they possessed. I cannot recall how the conversation was initiated. It occurred over the phone while we arranged to meet. But we began discussing the reduction in forces, and she expressed empathy for how I have been feeling. She mentioned that she believes government spending is excessively high and that some cuts are necessary, but they should not be executed as harshly as they have been. I responded by stating that no one should be terminated. I pointed out that our salaries account for only 4% of the budget. I argued that the Pentagon is the real issue, as they have failed their audits for the past 7 years and continually lose billions of dollars. She did not appreciate my comments and proceeded to argue about the necessity of the inflated military budget. I countered by agreeing that the government must be more accountable for its spending, but we need the services that the government is supposed to provide for us, which is precisely why we pay taxes. I emphasized that our tax dollars should serve us. She seemed displeased by my statement or unsure of how to respond, and she effectively ended the call. I suppose I am upset because she revealed that she essentially supports trimming the fat, as some may describe it, but it fails to address the real issues. Federal employees are being demonized, and false rumors are circulating that there is an excessive number of unnecessary positions. Any federal employee will tell you that they are actually understaffed and underfunded. In many cases, they earn less than their private counterparts, yet they remain in their roles to serve their country because the benefits were, in all honesty, appealing. While my position is essential in providing services that my branch and agency offer to the government, I am not deemed essential for the immediate functioning of the government. This means that I am not permitted to work during a shutdown because my position is not classified as essential. Consequently, I am aware that I will be subject to reduction in force procedures. It is not a question of if, but rather when. Just because she does not want me to lose my job, her support for staff reductions does not guarantee that I will be spared. These terminations are being enacted in a blanket manner without any discernible logic. This became particularly evident with probationary employees, as many assumed they were entry-level or under disciplinary review solely due to the term probationary. It is disheartening that she does not seem to grasp the implications of this, and when I tried to elaborate, she was unwilling to listen. After all, she tends to hold the position that she can never be wrong, regardless of how much evidence exists to the contrary. I do not want to care because of my past trauma. She has disappointed me numerous times. I despise that I still do, despite her consistent patterns. Nevertheless, I still feel hurt and betrayed. Yes, she does not want me terminated, but her support for the firings ultimately implies that she is to some extent in favor of it, as she does not fully consider the consequences and what will actually unfold. A blanket termination policy would position me as equally likely to lose my job as my colleagues, irrespective of my mother's sentiments. Therefore, in my view, she should oppose this entire initiative if she genuinely wishes to support me so that I can avoid worrying about it. This would entail her being more inclined to speak out against it, particularly among her friends and family, to help effect change. It would mean I could depend on her to contact her representatives to halt these terminations so that I would not face the risk of being fired. Story 5. My first love became my worst nightmare. I gave him everything only to discover he cheated with over 20 women. Now I took him lost and broken, wanting to leave but desperate for his love. How did I end up here? I have no one to confide in, so I decided to post here. I am dying inside. I cannot live, every breath feels painful. I am lost and do not know what to do. I met my now husband when I was 15 years old and he was 18. I believed it was true love, just butterflies in my stomach and all that kind of feeling. My parents were strict, so we began dating in secret. We genuinely loved each other. We did not get intimate until I was older. We met frequently and life seemed beautiful. We exchanged gifts. I even saved my lunch money to buy him something for his birthday or Valentine's Day. It did not matter. I was always saving to give him something special. Initially, he did the same. However, over time, his gifts became smaller and less frequent. Still, I was madly in love, so I did not mind. Years passed, and when I turned 19, we ran away together. I fought for our relationship against my parents and my family. I defended his name passionately. He was a street musician at that time, and my mother disapproved when she discovered our relationship. But I remained by his side, and eventually, he found a stable job. That year was wonderful and vibrant. I thought, this is it. I have everything I have ever dreamed of. I have won. Until I uncovered the most devastating truth that began to unravel me. At that time, I was not working. I was a housewife. I cooked, cleaned, cared for him, expressed my love, and even learned new recipes just for him. One night, while he was working the night shift, I casually opened one of his messaging applications. There, I discovered conversations from 2018 to 2019 with numerous girls. My throat burned. My soul screamed. He had been unfaithful to me the entire time we were together. And no, it was not just with 1 or 2 girls. It was over 20. He would go to pubs and bars, meet someone, and have a good time. Meanwhile, I stayed at home, worrying about him. Whenever he had cheated in the past, I was always the one reaching out to check on his well-being. For that, he grew angry with me. We fought. I cried for 4 consecutive days. I could not function, eat, or sleep. And now, seeing those texts confirmed everything, I immediately called him, shouting. Afterward, I went to the kitchen and sat there, staring at a bottle for 2 hours. I felt numb. All I wanted was to vanish. When he returned home, we talked. I could hear the regret in his voice. He felt ashamed. Despite all that, I still gave him another chance. However, something inside me shattered that day, truly shattered. I became a walking puppet, unable to feel anything but anguish. Years passed. Now I am 22. I started working, which made me a bit happier and busier. It helped me cope. Each time I received my salary, I bought him something: a wallet, trousers, a shirt, little gifts. However, he was the main breadwinner, and we always had enough for food, water, and necessities. For his birthday, I bought him an Xbox racing game set. In contrast, he did not get me anything. A single flower, even one picked from the ground, would have brought me joy, but I never received that. If I wanted something, I had to ask for it. After work, he often went out with his friends, or at least, that was what he told me. I always waited for him, even when he returned home in the morning. I consistently called to check if he was all right. One time, he came home with bruises on his face after getting into a fight. I immediately took care of him, cleaned his wounds, ensured he was warm, and stayed by his side until he fell asleep. Another time, he passed out at a bar. I kept calling, but he did not answer. I panicked and tracked his location. When I found him, I softly said, "Dear, let us go home." It was 8 in the morning, and do you know what he said to me? "Forget you." Right in front of everyone. His friends were there. I did not care. I told myself, he is drunk. He took a taxi home, and I went straight to work. Another time, he called to say he was drinking with friends and would be home soon. I waited until 3 a.m., then began calling him. He did not answer initially. When he finally picked up, he said he was too drunk and would stay where he was. I grew upset and told him to come home, but he hung up. I did not call him again that night. In the morning, I went to work, assuming he was home, but he was not. His phone was off. I panicked and started making a list of places to search for him. Just as I rushed out, his phone turned on. I immediately called him, crying, begging him to return home, and do you know what he told me? "I apologize, I lied, I was at some woman's house, but she was old." He even swore that they did not do anything. Hearing those words, my world collapsed. I felt dizzy. I could hardly breathe. I found him and brought him home, and once more I forgave him. I told myself it was the alcohol, that he was not in the right frame of mind, that it was not truly him. A year passed. He lost his job and stayed home. I encouraged him, reassuring him it was okay and that he would find another job. He lay in bed playing games for over a month. I did not complain. I remained patient. Last week, I sensed something was off. He was distant. He did not talk much. He did not hug or touch me. I stopped asking. Yesterday, he went to buy food for our pets. I stayed home to deep clean. He called to say he was at a pub and would eat and drink a little before coming back. Later, he called again to inform me he would not buy anything, that he wanted to go to pubs instead and would be late. I replied, "Okay, enjoy yourself." I called him several times. He was sweet. I waited for him all night. He came home at 4 a.m., intoxicated. He immediately went to bed. While he was undressing, I noticed it. A hickey. I froze. My vision darkened. My blood boiled. I demanded to know what it was. He kept insisting, No, it is not what you think." But I was not naive. I grabbed his phone and examined the transaction history. 2 payments, a significant sum. He finally admitted it. He went to a strip club. He hired a private room and a dancer. They kissed. They touched. I told him, "I did everything for you. I loved you more than life itself, and this is what I receive." And do you know what he said? "She was more beautiful than you, more attractive, had a better body. I do not regret it. I felt good." Those words shattered me. Now I am sitting here crying. I feel disgusted at the thought of him touching another woman. I feel like I might vomit. Yet, at the same time, I want to hug him so desperately. I have no one to confide in, no one to share this with. I even cut my hands just to feel something. I begged him for a hug. He refused. I do not know what to do. I do not want to leave him. But just imagining him kissing and touching someone else makes me want to die. 2 weeks ago, we were even discussing having a baby. I have never cheated and have never even considered cheating in my entire life. How did things become so complicated so quickly? Where did I go wrong?